everybody. I'm very glad to be here today with you, and I would like to thank you very much for the invitation to come here. It took me 2 years to organize a collaboration between our two hospitals, but then I was very glad that we were able to welcome Wit and Mimi, and I hope that we will have other fellows from Thailand in Toulouse. It was really a pleasure. So I was asked to discuss about the wide neck aneurysm and how to manage them. And I will start by saying wide neck aneurysm, if there are two main questions. The first one is it lateral or bifurcation aneurysm? And the second one is it a rupture or an unruptured aneurysm? Because indeed everything changes depending its lateral bifurcation, ruptured or unruptured. The point is that if it's a rupture aneurysm, in my mind at least, for both lateral and bifurcation aneurysm, you should only use intrasaccular devices because it's ruptured. So it's coils, balloon, or web. And you know that in France and the pupil of Jacques very often use balloons, so we use balloon, I don't know exactly, but at least in 70–80% of the cases for ruptured aneurysm, the balloon is not often really useful, but it protects if there is a bleed. So we use it more or less like a seat belt, and we use balloon in most of the cases. So ruptured aneurysm, whatever lateral or bifurcation, for me it's only intrasaccular devices. There are exceptions like blister-like aneurysm and dissection. When the parent artery occlusion is not possible, you can use stent coils or flow diversion, and people do it. The problem is that we still don't know whether it works and whether it is safe. For example, treating a blister-like aneurysm of the terminus of the ICA with a flow diverter, a lot of people do it, but we don't know if it works, if it protects against a rebleed or not. For unruptured aneurysm, then you have two situations, whether it's a lateral aneurysm, and for me, lateral aneurysm, wide neck, it's flow diversion, and I will not discuss at all about that because Jacques Morin will speak about this soon. For me, the question is whether we still should use normal stent, non-flow diverter stents in lateral wide neck aneurysm. I don't see the reason why, and I think it's better to use the flow diverter. A flow diverter is a denser mesh stent, so why using a regular stent when you can use a flow diverter? Maybe the only reason why you should use a stent is that it's less expensive than a flow diverter. Then you have the bifurcation unruptured aneurysms, wide neck indeed. And then you have a lot of possibilities, and it's very difficult to know now because you have a lot of technological developments and new devices that we have every year at least. So for unruptured wide neck bifurcation aneurysm, you can use the regular technique, which is coil balloon or coil stent, or the other system to assist coiling, the web, the other intrasaccular devices, flow diverters in bifurcation, but as well surgery. And indeed, surgery is probably the only or the main reason to do surgery today is bifurcation wide neck aneurysms. So I would say that coil balloon works very well. Coiling protected by one or two balloons works in most of the cases for both ruptured and unruptured, and it is very safe. And that has been very well shown and documented. So I show you those very old cases that we did, that Jacques did when I was there. Look at this case of the very large neck ecom aneurysm, one balloon. Look at the result with coils. That was done probably more than 20 years ago. Same, a very famous case of this top of the basilar ruptured aneurysm treated with two balloons, positioning of the balloon, deflation, you check that the coils do not move, and this is the final result. So coiling under balloon protection works extremely well, and for me is the safest technique. And now you have the improvement of the balloon technology, which was a major step because now you have the double lumen balloons. So the point is that with those balloons you can use a lot of wires, And then the catheterization is much easier than with a single lumen balloon where you are limited in the choice of the wire that you can use. The other point is that you don't need to have the wire distal to the tip of the balloon in order to inflate it, because you have 2 lumen, so you don't need to have the wire distal, so you don't change the anatomy. The other point is that the risk if you use a single lumen balloon is that when you go back and forth with a wire, then you can bring back blood within the balloon, and that is quite dangerous. And then you know as well that with those balloons you can as well deploy a baby stent, or even today a baby flow diverter, deliver coils or injectronics. So this is one recent case. So the aneurysm is quite ugly, it's a ruptured aneurysm. The catheterization is not very tricky. You know that very often the upper branch is very difficult to catheterize because it's very recurrent direction. In that case, it was not so difficult. So you have the 2 balloons, 1 catheter in the aneurysm. This is a coiling, and this is 1 year after coiling the follow-up MR. So Coy's balloon in wide neck bifurcation aneurysm works very well, very safe, no need for antiplatelet, no need for control angio. In most of the centers in France, when we treat aneurysm, we do only MR control. We don't do control angio anymore. The only reason to use control angio is when you leave something in the artery, whether it's a stent or a flow diverter, then you need a control angio. When it's just coiled in the aneurysm, you just do MR. And we never do angio except there is a recurrence and we wonder whether we should retreat or not. So then you have coils and stent. So coiling protected by 1 or 2 stents works as well, very well, but only for unruptured aneurysm. I think that we never do. I think we did it once. We never do coils and stent in ruptured aneurysm. So the question is why using coils and stent instead of Coy's balloon? And for me, the unique reason is that because Coy's balloon cannot make it. I mean, if the neck is very, very large, you cannot keep the coils in the aneurysm despite you use 2 balloons, so you have to use a stent. The question is there any other reason? And a lot of people are considering that stent decrease the risk of long-term recanalization. This is a reason why we should use stent in aneurysm coiling. My point is that we don't know at all from the literature. We don't have randomized study. We have some papers in the literature, but they don't bring any evidence to show that you should use a stent to decrease the long-term risk of recanalization. And this is why depending on the team, for example, René Chapeau in Essen is using stent in almost all the aneurysm he's treating, when in Toulouse we almost never use a stent. For me, the use of stent increases the risk of complication because you need 2 antiplatelets, because it increases the risk of per and post-procedure risk of thromboembolic complication and stent thrombosis. The very risky point is the tip of the wire that can rupture the distal artery, and at long term there is a risk of in-stent stenosis and thrombosis. So these are the numbers. Clarity is a study that was done in France. It's only ruptured aneurysm, and this is a morbid mortality. This is a number we give to the patient when we treat, and the family when we treat a ruptured aneurysm. And this is unruptured aneurysm, Athena study. Those are consecutive studies in all French centers. So you see the morbid mortality of Athena, and you see that if you use a stent, it was the Enterprise and the Striker stent, you can see that the morbid mortality probably increased just a bit, but there is an increased risk when you use a stent versus not using a stent. Despite now you have, as well as with the balloon, a recent improvement in the stent technology, and this is a major step. So you have the new stent, Baby Leo, Elvis, Junior, and Atlas. And for example, the Atlas fits in a very small microcatheter, very small arteries. It always open because it's an open cells design and cells are separated. It's a high radial force. It doesn't change the anatomy, which can be regarded as good or bad. Bad if you consider that if you change the anatomy, you will change the flow and you will have a better long-term effect. good in this regard that if you modify the anatomy too much, you don't know exactly what will be the end result. And you don't need to jail the catheter because you can always go through the stent or the two stents. So this is the stent, and it's clear that if you do a bifurcation aneurysm here, you are sure that the stent will open, which is not the case with the braided stent. So this is a case of a large neck aneurysm. Here you have the two atlas stent, then the catheter is positioned into the aneurysm, and this is the end result. So you have the baby Leo and the Elvis Junior as well, fitting in a very small catheter. They do change the anatomy a bit more. Can be seen as something good because you change the flow and then maybe you decrease the risk of recanalization. They could have potentially a flow diverter effect that we still need to evaluate. The problem is that when you open one into the other in the Y, in the bifurcation, you're not sure that the stent will completely open where the two stents cross each other. This is a case given to me by Laurence Pell, beautiful images of what can be achieved. And then there are two devices for aneurysm treatment that I do not use, which are the PulseRider and the Piconus, because they are only coil-assisting devices. So the PulseRider, now Cerebnovus, you know the design of it, so you have some sort of petals that you have to leave depending on the operator inside or outside the aneurysm, in the artery or within the aneurysm. So this is a case from Dodi Bocardi. This is the positioning of the PulseRider here. So it's just meant to cover the neck and make coiling possible. But you leave the system within the artery. This is the end of the procedure, and this is a 20 months follow-up. And then you have the Piconus, which is more or less the same concept. The concept is to seal the neck to allow coiling. And so this is a case from Alessandra Biondi. Again, you place the system at the neck, you coil, but you leave the system inside. So why I don't use them? Because their only role is to assist coiling, but they are permanently implanted. There is no effect in the long term that could improve the occlusion stability, and they may compromise a later retreatment with stent or with flow diverters. So then, for me, the real revolution for bifurcation Y neck aneurysm is whatever the aneurysm is ruptured or unruptured, the Webb device. And for me, it's really a revolution. Why? It's a cage instead of coils, and this is not by itself a revolution, but it's a square-shaped device for square neck aneurysm. It is the only device which is square and then flat at the level of the neck. But it allows treating untreatable or very difficult to treat aneurysm, those cases in which you need to do a Y stenting. It is extremely easy to use. It's very fast and straightforward procedure. And the point is that the Webb is delivered from outside the aneurysm. You don't touch the wall of the aneurysm with a catheter or with a wire, and you don't need to use antiplatelet treatment. The cons are that it needs experience to select the good size of the Webb, and even with experience, very often you fail. And you don't select the good one, which is not a problem. You just need to take it off and take another one. The drawback is that there is no large size. Probably the long-term efficacy is not yet completely evaluated, and definitely compared to coils, the price is still a problem. For me, it's the first time that a new device was launched in the field of the interventional neuroradiology with a good clinical evaluation. First time. For example, the flow diverters. Since 10 years we use them, we still have very small data in the literature. The Webb for the first in man use, a lot of cases were gathered in prospective study, so we have a very good clinical evaluation. The device has changed a lot. Initially it was a dual layer system, then it became a single layer system. Initially we need a very large catheter. The first system were used in up to a 38 microcatheter. Today, the new Webb, small one until 7 millimeter in diameter, they fit in a 17 catheter, so more or less like coils. You have really a good clinical evaluation, and if you mix all the European study, you have a morbidity of 2.4, mortality of 0, and in the US study, the WebIT, you have a morbidity of 0.7 and mortality of 0. So it looks extremely safe. Indeed, in most of the cases, in those series, aneurysms were unruptured. Concerning the rate of complete occlusion, so you know that there is this term of adequate occlusion that is gathering the Raymond 1 and Raymond 2, and it's 80% of complete occlusion. Just two cases, pericallosal aneurysm. So you measure the aneurysm in two directions. I will speak a bit more tomorrow about that in the microvention symposium. The point is that you have to oversize the web to really activate it. So we used here a web of 6 millimeter in an aneurysm of 5 millimeter. And this is the end result. And you see the stagnation already and the occlusion, the immediate occlusion of the aneurysm, which now allows using the web for ruptured aneurysm. Another case, again, you see that the mean diameter of the aneurysm is 3.8, despite we were using a web of 6 millimeter to activate it. And you can see that if you project the web on the aneurysm, it looks extremely large compared to the diameter of the aneurysm, but you can see that then the aneurysm is compressed, elongated, and you seal perfectly the neck at this place here. And this is a comparison of the web virtual projection and then the final result, and you see how much the web can adapt to the shape of the aneurysm. And this is the 18 months result. So web can be used in all ruptured and unruptured. There is no need to antiplatelet treatment. Oversizing strategy can be applied as well in ruptured aneurysm, and now we'll have soon the result of the last publication concerning only ruptured aneurysm. So this is a basilar ruptured WFNS1 aneurysm. Look at the size, so we oversized as well. Now the marker is placed inside the artery, not inside the aneurysm. And this is the result at day 1 and at 3 months. So the question is, because I was asked to answer this question in a congress recently, whether the web will replace COIS, because now the web can be used in a catheter of the same size as the one for COIS. And why? I don't know. For which reason? It could be that it's less risky, you have lower morbid mortality, and it's possible. It's possible because it's so straightforward. Again, you just place the catheter at the front, at the neck of the aneurysm, and you park the web inside. Compared to double stenting, when you need to manipulate a lot the wire, as soon as you touch several times the wall of the artery with the tip of the wire, there is some endothelial damages, and this is the main reason to get clot. So probably the fact that the web use is so easy to perform, you decrease the morbid mortality. About the long term, we still don't know about the risk of recanalization compared to coil, and definitely the problem is that it's still more expensive than coiling. Finally, we need different web device, large and stiff for wide neck, large aneurysm, and small and soft for berry aneurysm. The two last endosaccular system are the contour and the neck stent. So there are only a few cases done in the world. The contour is something like an EMI web. And you are supposed to place it at the neck of the aneurysm. You see the design of the system. This is one case where you see the device here, bulging a bit in the artery, like with a web, and you see that this aneurysm is completely occluded. Until now, we don't know at all. When I saw the system, I said it will never work, and the system will be at the dome of the aneurysm 3 months later. It's probably not true, but we don't know, and we need evaluation. And the other system is a combination of a sealing device and the use of COIS. So you position the system at the neck, and then you COIS the aneurysm. So we are waiting for a good evaluation. I'm already too late, no? No? I still have time? Okay. This afternoon I will be shorter. So the other point is in those wide neck, large, giant, very difficult to treat aneurysm, should we use flow diversion in a bifurcation aneurysm, let's say MCA, ACA, carotid T, basilar T? And I don't know. The question is that those wide neck and often large or giant bifurcation aneurysm are the most difficult to treat. The flow diversion is, for me, the best way, the most definitive treatment for aneurysm. The question is, should we use flow diverter in wide neck bifurcation aneurysm? And then the questions are, what is the risk of the covered cortical branch stroke, the risk of covered perforator stroke, and the likelihood of aneurysm occlusion at long term? So we published a paper, it was 2 years ago, and it was only on 19 aneurysm. And the point is that at the 8 months follow-up, which was at the time the latest follow-up, 10% of the covered branch were occluded. Almost 50% of them were decreased in caliber. The morbidity was very low because we had in 17% a symptomatic perforator stroke, but they were all reversible. And a lot of asymptomatic perforator stroke visible on MR, but completely asymptomatic. Finally, in this first paper, the morbid mortality was 0. And 30% of the aneurysm decreased in size, 33 were occluded and 66% were decreased in size. And the conclusions that we wrote for the first paper were the treatment works because the covered branch either disappears or is reduced in caliber, and we were convinced that finally, at long term, all the covered branch will disappear, the parial anastomosis will take over the distal aspect of those branch, and this is a way the aneurysm is cured. And this with a very low morbid mortality, mainly with deep asymptomatic stroke. So then we now have a new paper under publication. It's only 30 aneurysms, so you know that we go very step by step because we don't really know whether using a flow diverter in a bifurcation is something clever or not. So finally, at long term, the point is that covered branches, they don't all disappear when initially we were convinced they were all disappearing. Then finally, you have 20% of the branches which are occluded, almost 50 which are decreased in caliber, and 1/3 which are unchanged. Indeed, you can see an immediate covered branch flow stop, and that is a bit scary. This is the aneurysm, ruptured. I did the treatment, it was very complex, so I was able to coil the inferior portion of the sac. Then I tried to go to the upper sac. I ruptured the aneurysm, obliged to reverse heparin. So I stopped the procedure because I was not able to occlude the upper sac. And then we discussed with the surgeons whether we should do something or not. We did a control angio. The upper sac was changed, and then we decided to do something, not surgery, but flow diverter. So we placed a flow diverter from the left A1 to the right A2, and you can see that immediately you have a complete disappearance of the left A2, which is jailed by the flow diversion. Despite just by increasing the blood pressure, because this is a flow phenomenon. So if you have very good collaterals, the collaterals take the anterior cerebral artery, but you will see that finally at 4 months the artery is still there, the patient is asymptomatic, the MR was normal. So at long term, all the branches don't disappear, so you have branches that are occluded, like in that case, aneurysm is cured, the cover branch has disappeared, cover branch reduced, aneurysm cured, cover branch reduced, aneurysm cured. You see, they look all the same, huh? Same here, same here. So we were convinced that the mechanism of and the way the aneurysm will be cured is the fact that these branches will finally disappear. So finally, after 30 patients, we understood that the aneurysm can be cured even if the branch is still circulating. Then looking at the ischemic complication, more or less the same. So we have symptomatic reversible stroke in 3 patients, MR asymptomatic stroke in 24%, 1%, and only one patient had a cortical stroke with MRS-2 at control. So finally, the permanent morbidity was 3.4. Permanent complication with MRS above 2 was 0, mortality 0. So this is the only case in which we had a major complication, and because I did a mistake, I selected a very, very long flow diverter and covered too many branches. And so finally, this is just, you see the flow diverter is in place here, and you can see that the branch will progressively disappear one by one until we still have one branch. So we were just waiting, increasing the blood pressure. They were quite good collaterals, but still the patient had a stroke and was an aphasia, which has almost completely recovered finally at the late control. So if you consider the occlusion rate at long term, it's the SRMR is done at 20 months mean follow-up. Finally, 82% of the aneurysm are completely cured, and 91% if you consider the patient with 2 DSS, so longer control. So it works. It works, but it takes time, and it takes, as a mean, 12 months for the aneurysm to completely disappear. So it's a long time process, and you need 1 year for the aneurysm to occlude. This is a case of an aneurysm that is completely stable at 66 months, despite the branch is still here. And this is the only case we saw of a potential recurrence, because you see the aneurysm at the time of the treatment, the first control, and this is at 41 months. You see that this branch, which we thought will disappear, finally did not disappear and re-increase in size. And finally, you see this very, very small aneurysm. I don't know if we should call it a recurrence or not, but we were surprised to see that the branch at control finally re-increased in size. And you see, here it's difficult to see, but you see that there is a very small new aneurysm that was not visible at the previous MR as well. Okay. So finally, should we use flow diverter in Wynette bifurcation aneurysm? It works, but it takes time. The point is that you don't need to have an occlusion of the branch to have an occlusion of the aneurysm. The morbid mortality is low, but there is a risk of immediate occlusion of one of the branch and unpredictable stroke risk. So to conclude, wide neck, ruptured aneurysm, lateral bifurcation, intrasaccular device only, coils balloon web, unruptured wide neck, flow diversion, unruptured bifurcation wide neck, mainly coils balloon, web, sometimes coil stent, and sometimes flow diverter. Thank you very much.